Every artist has his own reasons for creating something. For example, we can see that there are issues with how some things are taught, like in the music performance programs at conservatories. What's the problem with the teaching? I didn't make this up. It was told to me by some students at the music conservatory, especially those studying conducting. They told me that our teachers teach us like this. For instance, if you're getting ready to conduct a symphony, like Bruckner's Symphony No. 7, the first thing you should do is what? Gather up all the info about the music history. The teacher will let you know which info is a must-read. When Bruckner was writing his Symphony No. 7, he was writing letters to his friends, and that's important stuff because in those letters, he mentioned the Symphony No. 7 he was composing. To really get the full story of Bruckner's life, from his first symphony all the way to the 6th, and then on to the 7th, we need to look at how his thoughts and musical style changed. Why? To understand what Bruckner wanted to express with his Symphony No. 7. Getting clear on Bruckner's intentions after he wrote Symphony No. 7 became a must. They thought this was so natural, and only by doing this could they dare to say they got what he was trying to convey in the score. It was essential to understand what Bruckner wanted to say with his Symphony No. 7 before even trying to conduct it. I've realized how naive this teaching method is. What's it called? Seeing a text as solely about understanding the author, that's called author-centeredness. So, what's the deal between us and the work? It's all about fulfilling the creator's intention. That's why we read those poems the way we do. The poems of Li Bai, Du Fu, they're all like the authors pouring their hearts out. This changes our relationship with the work into using it to understand the author. We're looking at the work as one side of the author's life story. For example, the author has been creating throughout their life so many works, and we see all of these works as reflective of what? The author's life story. Thinking this way messes with art creation, forgetting what art is really about. So, every piece of art is born from an urge to create, right? You can think of this urge as carrying the artist's intentions, kind of like that quote we talked about from Zheng Banxiao earlier. He said something like, "I felt a strong desire to paint in my heart, and that's what they call the bamboo in the heart." But later on, Zheng Banxiao was pretty clear that once he finished painting, what he had in his hand wasn't the same as what was in his heart. We can't just see a work as exactly what the artist intended. Once a work is out there, it takes on a life of its own, way beyond what the artist had in mind. That's why we need to let go of this idea that the artist's intentions are the be-all and end-all. We don't even have to know who created a work. This class on explaining literary works shouldn't turn into a history lesson, right? So, let's shift away from focusing solely on the artist and say goodbye to our original naivety as we move into the next phase. The real meaning of a work comes from the text itself. Its meaning is right there in the words. It's pretty straightforward. No matter where or when, the meaning of a work is contained within its own text. This is progress, isn't it? How do we move forward? We stop making it all about the artist and start making it about the text. Western literary criticism has moved through this shift, from artist-focused to text-focused. It's definitely a step in the right direction, and we need to recognize that. You know, when Seiji Ozawa conducted the Long March Symphony written by a Chinese composer, he didn't need to dive into the history books about the Chinese Long March. He just had to read the score and that was it. He wouldn't have to know where was Wu Qizheng. Take for example, there's a part in the symphony about crossing the Qishui River 4 times. How exactly did they do it? Should he have Googled it before conducting the symphony? Nah, he didn't need all that historical background about the Red Army. And why should you bother with Beethoven's life story if you're conducting his music? Or the stuff he was thinking while composing? Just stick to reading the music score, that's all. We don't need to dig into who wrote Climbing High, or even know who Du Fu is. Did you really feel the poem? Was it a good read? Yeah, it was awesome. You just soaked in every word of Climbing High and truly got into its world. So, here's the deal. Once we get all obsessed with sticking to the text, we start thinking that the performance has to be the one and only correct one, totally in line with the text itself. I went to this symphony concert once, and they played that popular piece loved by the Chinese, Johann Strauss's Blue Danube. I never expected it, but that day in the concert hall, I was like, wow, this piece feels so long. But hey, it was super accurate, no doubt about it. The conductor didn't miss a single note, not one beat was out of place. He was totally loyal to the text. You can't fault him, he's what you'd call a top-notch conductor. He knew how to keep the whole orchestra in perfect rhythm, every section was on point, he nailed it all. But man, it just felt so long to me, you know? So, you see, when a conductor is about to lead an orchestra in a symphony, the first thing they do is read the score. They need to figure out which parts are tricky in each section, which bits are technically challenging and need special attention. They also need to understand how the different harmonies fit together. It's all part of the reading process. But here's the thing, even after reading it all correctly the first time, can they just start conducting? Nope, not quite. The next step in reading the score is really getting into the details. It's like reading between the lines. You can't just stick to the surface, you've got to delve deeper. This is crucial, it's where you really need to understand what the music is all about. Once you've gotten into the nitty-gritty of the score, that's when you've truly grasped it. That's your internal vision. And when you're performing, conducting, or playing, you want to bring that vision to life. Because all the effort you put into your performance is about expressing what you've understood from the score, the nuances, the subtleties. You know, that's what we call artistic interpretation. The same score placed in front of different performers undergoes different artistic treatments, and this artistic treatment is up to you. What is meant by artistic treatment? As much as possible, through your performance, let the audience feel what you have read between the lines of the text, allowing them to step into it as well. This is the real test for a conductor. Is the ability to read between the lines, to interpret what is written there, something that the text itself can guarantee? It cannot. What does it depend on? The listener. So, our stance has shifted again. We used to be centered on the author, right? Now we have shifted to being centered on the text. Later on, people figured out that the words on the page don't necessarily define what the work is all about, they just show what the work could be. Everyone might read the same poem, but they'll take away different things from it, depending on their own experiences and perspectives. Take our professor, Luo Yuming, for example. When he talks about ancient Chinese poetry, he's basically sharing his own take on it, right? Maybe you've never looked at it the same way. His understanding is on a whole other level, so it's worth paying attention in his class. It's like when different conductors take on the same piece of music, they're all putting their own spin on it. Some conductors might not really get what the music is all about, while others might read too much into it and try to show off what they've read through their conducting skills. So, instead of focusing solely on the text, we've shifted towards what? Reader-centeredness. 3 centers. That means, in the world of performing arts, every time a work is interpreted, it's like even though the work exists, each performance is a unique take on the text, and it's not something that the text itself can fully control. You know how when we're reading Dream of the Red Chamber, Mr. Lu Sun had written about it, right? Like who really wrote Dream? And who's the sequel's author? let's not worry about that for now. Just think about how different people see it in different ways. So, the Confucian scholars see it as the Book of Changes, Taoist scholars see something saucy, literary types see romance, and the revolutionaries see a rebellion. This Tsai Yuanpei guy, a revolutionary, says, Dream of the Red Chamber is all about overthrowing the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty. Then there are the gossip lovers who see a whole lot of palace intrigues going on in there. These are the old-school rheologists belonging to the old hidden clues school. But really, Dream is like a sneak peek into the political games of the Qing dynasty, all those shady dealings in the palace. And now we've got a new group that's kind of like the hidden clues crew, led by this guy Lu Xinwu, who's still all about those palace shenanigans. I think he's just a new gossip lover, and he even wrote a sequel. You see, because of all the different readers and their different points of view, we end up with all these different interpretations. So, where do we find the real, true Dream of the Red Chamber? Is it in the actual text? Nah, the text means something different to everyone. So, that brings us to a really cool topic, doesn't it? What actually is performance art? It's like the second round of creating. Sure, it's based on the original work, but that work is just a blank canvas waiting for someone else to interpret it. And it's a big deal whether that interpreter is an artist or not.